What you are about to watch is a journey down 7 levels of darkness. We start at level 1, in a place that should be safe. We will find a 68-year-old grandmother who turned a quiet senior home into a bloody crime scene. From there, it gets worse. We will see rappers who killed people just to put it in a music video. We will see men who betrayed the women they promised to protect. But at level 7, we find the worst case of all. We will meet a man who killed a pregnant teenager to hide a secret and thought he could bury the truth forever under tons of garbage. This is the spectrum of violence. These are the 7 levels of Jacksonville. Let's begin. First up at level 1 is Keith Kegler Jr. We convince ourselves that meeting in public places keeps us safe. We trust the parking lot in broad daylight or the security of our own car with the engine running. We tell ourselves that danger only exists in dark alleys and that predators wear their intentions like warning signs. But the reality is far more terrifying. Sometimes the monster arrives with a smile and climbs directly into your passenger seat. Keith Kegler Jr. did not look like a killer. A glance at his social media prior to the murder revealed a standard digital footprint photos with friends, check-ins at local spots, the kind of online presence that puts a stranger at ease. This is the danger of our connected world. We swipe, message, and build digital relationships, forgetting that screens can hide the darkness behind a persona. Tivin Robinson made the fatal mistake of trusting that digital facade. He agreed to meet Kegler, likely believing it was just a quick transaction or conversation. Tivin sat in the driver's seat of his car, a space that usually offers a sense of control and escape. But that control was an illusion. Consider this time frame, 10 minutes. That is all it took. From the moment Keith Kegler Jr. entered the passenger seat to the moment he pulled the trigger, only 10 minutes elapsed. You have spent longer scrolling through your phone today, yet that brief window was enough for Kegler to transform from a seemingly regular guy into a cold-blooded executioner. Picture the scene. Tivin is behind the wheel, perhaps reaching for his phone or relaxed. Kegler is inches away, close enough to be heard breathing. The most chilling detail is the lack of panic. Kegler wasn't shaking, he wasn't in a blind rage. This was calculated. He sat next to another human being, looked into his eyes, and made a conscious choice to extinguish a life. When the gun came out in that confined space, Tivin would have had a moment of crystallized terror, the realization that this was real, followed by the deafening sound echoing off the glass and a smell of gunpowder. Kegler showed no remorse. He didn't call for help or check for a pulse. He executed Tivin Robinson and left him cooling in a parking lot, leaving a family to make frantic, unanswered calls. This case forces us to ask, what red flags were missed? Tivin had been communicating with Kegler. Were there signs of instability in those messages that were ignored for the sake of politeness? We are often taught to give people the benefit of the doubt, to ignore our instincts to avoid appearing rude. The true horror here isn't just that Kegler could pull the trigger, but that he could sit beside someone, look them in the eye, and decide their entire existence, their memories, future, and family was worth less than his momentary motivation. Remember Tivin Robinson. Remember that monsters often look exactly like the people you would trust. Every time you unlock your doors for a stranger, remember that 10 minutes is all it takes for a life to end. Next on the list at level 2 is Omar Lewis. Your home is your sanctuary. It is the one place where you let your guard down, where you exist without pretense. We lock our doors to preserve that bubble of safety. But what happens when you invite the danger inside? What happens when you offer hospitality, and it is repaid with the erasure of your existence? Omar Lewis understood that a home contains a person's entire life, not just their physical body, but their identity. Social security cards, bank statements, passwords, everything that makes you, you, is documented within your walls. And Omar Lewis was hunting for exactly that. Jesse Sumor was a good neighbor, the kind of person who helped others. He was the type to invite you in for a drink and treat you like a friend immediately. We celebrate this kind of openness. We raise our children to be kind and trusting. It is tragic when that very kindness becomes the weapon used to destroy a person. Imagine Jesse's living room. Comfortable furniture, perhaps the TV playing, drinks on the table. Two men engaged in what appeared to be a normal conversation. There were no screaming arguments, no obvious signs of impending doom. Just conversation, until Omar Lewis made his move. 18 times. That number is crucial to understanding the brutality of this crime. Omar Lewis plunged a knife into Jesse Sumar's body 18 separate times. This wasn't a split-second reaction. It was a sustained, physical effort. After the first stab, Jesse would have been in shock. After the fifth, he might have been begging. Yet Lewis continued, pulling the blade out and driving it back in until he had delivered 18 deliberate acts of violence. This was not a loss of control, it was methodical butchery. However, the murder was only the beginning. Omar Lewis didn't kill Jesse out of vengeance or passion. He killed him because Jesse possessed something Omar wanted, his identity. While Jesse's body was still warm in the next room, Omar Lewis went to work. He rifled through personal belongings, finding identification, bank cards, and passwords. With the blood of his victim barely dry, Omar sat down at Jesse's computer and began the process of becoming Jesse Sumar. He accessed bank accounts, made withdrawals, and moved money as if it were his own. He had stolen Jesse's life, so he felt entitled to steal his assets as well. The coldness required for this is difficult to comprehend. To sit calmly at a computer, while the person you just stabbed 18 times lies dead nearby, is a form of desecration. It is theft of the most profound kind. The system failed Jesse Sumar. Identity theft is remarkably easy. Banks and systems rarely verify if the person behind the screen is actually the account holder. Omar Lewis banked on this digital anonymity. Let this haunt you. Jesse Sumar opened his door to offer human decency and paid for it with his life. Omar Lewis is in prison, but the blueprint remains. Your home contains your identity, and your kindness is a potential vulnerability. Somewhere, someone else is calculating if your trust is worth the violence required to take your place. Coming in at level 3 is Otis Lee Tucker. There is a uniquely American ritual of bonding over drinks, meeting someone at a bar, sharing stories, and finding common ground over music and alcohol is how we build community. Otis Lee Tucker understood this ritual well. He knew how to play the part of the friendly guy at the bar, buying rounds, laughing at jokes, making people feel safe. This ability to mimic normalcy is what makes his actions so viscerally disturbing. Ashley made the mistake of thinking that shared drinks and conversation created a bond. Maybe they talked about work or life. Maybe Ashley felt lucky to meet someone easy to talk to. As the night wore on, Ashley likely believed a friendship was forming. But Otis Lee Tucker wasn't looking for friends. He was hunting, using sociability as camouflage. The violence was triggered by something trivial, a petty dispute, according to reports. Perhaps a disagreement over a tab, a wrong word, or a joke taken poorly. In truth, nothing Ashley could have said justified what happened next. But for Tucker, that petty dispute was permission to unleash his rage. Tucker didn't use his fists. He didn't engage in a standard bar fight. Instead, he retrieved a hammer. He didn't grab a random object in a panic. He selected a tool designed for demolition, and he used it on Ashley's skull. The reality of this violence is hideous. A hammer striking a human head creates a sound you can never unhear. The first blow would have been disorienting. The subsequent blows brought profuse bleeding and the end of consciousness. Tucker bludgeoned Ashley repeatedly, bringing the hammer down again and again as life drained away on the floor. This was not mutual combat. This was an execution disguised as an argument. Tucker had every opportunity to walk away, to be anything other than a murderer. Instead, he chose to keep swinging until Ashley was dead. The terrifying question is, how many people did Otis Lee Tucker drink with before he met Ashley? How many times did he feign normalcy before the mask slipped? Tucker could control himself right up until the moment he decided not to, meaning Ashley had no warning signs. There were no red flags to see, just a guy having drinks who suddenly became a monster. Society failed Ashley by allowing a man like Tucker to walk free, armed with rage, waiting for an excuse to use it. We tell ourselves we can spot dangerous people, that we would never end up like Ashley. But Ashley likely thought the same thing while ordering that first drink. You have probably had drinks with someone like Otis Lee Tucker, someone carrying violence just beneath the surface. You simply got lucky. The conversation didn't turn. The dispute never happened. You walked away unharmed, never knowing how close you came to the moment the hammer comes down. Taking the spot at level 4 is Carol Sr. We imagine places of rest, bingo nights, and communal dinners, spaces where the chaos of the world quiets down. We do not picture blood, and we certainly do not picture murder. Yet, safety is an illusion when violence lives next door. Carol was 68 years old. She had lived a full life, raised children, and built decades of history with her husband. The man she killed was not an intruder or a stranger. He was the father of her children, the person she had shared a life with for years. And in a place built for peace, she calmly plunged a knife into him. This was not a crime of youthful impulse or sudden blind rage. Carol had 68 years to learn emotional regulation, to learn how to walk away. Instead, she chose a weapon. The staff at the facility never saw it coming because we assume the elderly have aged out of violence. We worry about falls and medication errors, not homicide. Picture the scene, a common area designed with soft lighting and safety handrails. In this environment, Carol made a decision. She didn't grab the knife in panic. She retrieved it with premeditation. The first thrust of the blade would have been a moment of impossible betrayal for her husband. To be attacked by your partner of decades, in a place where you are supposed to be safe, is a horror the brain struggles to process. The most disturbing detail is her demeanor. Witnesses described Carol as eerily composed afterward. She didn't break down. She didn't panic. She had crossed a line most people cannot even approach, and she did so with a steadiness that suggests this was calculated. We must ask, what history justifies this? Was it years of resentment compounding into a debt paid in blood, or was it a sudden, final snap? The tragedy extends to their adult children, who now have to reconcile the fact that their mother murdered their father. The facility failed because it was designed to keep residents from wandering off, not to keep them from killing each other. Carol proved that age does not guarantee wisdom or peace. Sometimes it just provides better opportunities for violence. The knife cuts just as deep when wielded by a grandmother. Remember that the next time you assume someone is harmless because of their gray hair, 68 years of experience can teach you how to kill and stay calm while doing it. Sitting at level 5 is Jared Studemeyer. The title of stepfather is supposed to carry weight, a role of guidance, protection, and stepping up. We trust them to discipline and care for children who aren't biologically theirs. But sometimes, that role is a mask, and discipline becomes execution. Jamal's mother made a call countless parents make. Her son was acting out, so she called Jared Studemeyer for reinforcements. She wanted him to have a conversation, to set boundaries, to be a parent. She trusted him completely. She had no idea that by dialing his number, she was signing her son's death warrant. Jared Studemeyer wasn't asked to commit violence. He was asked to handle a behavioral issue. But he heard that request and decided that what was needed wasn't a lecture, but an end to a life. When Jared arrived, Jamal ran. That detail haunts this case. Jamal saw his stepfather coming, and his instincts screamed danger. He didn't see a parent. He saw a threat. He fled, and Jared Studemeyer hunted him down. This wasn't a heated argument in a living room. It was a pursuit. Jared tracked this terrified child, caught him, and killed him. There was no immediate remorse. Jared didn't call the police in a panic. Instead, he dug a shallow grave. He treated the child he was supposed to guide like trash to be hidden. The shallowness of the grave speaks to a laziness and a lack of humanity. Just enough dirt to hide the evidence. Just enough to buy time to formulate a lie. The mother's guilt is unimaginable. She made one decision with good intentions, and it resulted in the worst possible outcome. The system failed Jamal because men like Jared Studemeyer rarely go from zero to child murder without warning signs. There were likely red flags, aggression, threats that were ignored or minimized because we want to trust authority figures. We give stepfathers immense power based on trust. When that trust is betrayed, the child pays the price. How many other mothers are making phone calls right now, asking for help with discipline, unaware that the person on the other end is capable of murder? How many shallow graves are waiting because we trusted the wrong person? Landing at level 6 is Nathaniel Slade. Helping a friend escape abuse is heroic. It is the right thing to do. When someone you care about is trapped and vulnerable, offering a hand is an act of courage. LaDonna believed in this narrative. She thought she was being a good friend by helping a woman escape a dangerous relationship.
She didn't realize that in the eyes of Nathaniel Slade, heroism was a capital offense.
Nathaniel Slade was an abuser who could not tolerate losing control. When his victim decided to leave, Slade didn't reflect on his behavior. He looked for someone to punish. LaDonna wasn't his girlfriend. She wasn't the one breaking up with him. She was just the person who offered a safe harbor. For the crime of interfering with his property, Slade decided she had to die. The attack was fast and brutal. Slade stabbed LaDonna repeatedly. This wasn't a warning, it was an eradication.
He ensured she was dead, ensuring she could never help anyone again. LaDonna likely opened her door thinking she was safe, believing that the danger was directed at her friend, not her. But when the first blow landed, she realized that her compassion had been weaponized against her. The disposal of her body is the detail that should make your skin crawl. After murdering LaDonna, Nathaniel Slade stuffed her body into a trash can. He didn't bury her, he threw her away.
Think about the logistics. Fitting a human body into a trash can requires physical manipulation, effort, and time. He had to handle the woman he just murdered, bending her limbs to make her fit, treating a human being like yesterday's garbage. He never stopped to reconsider. He viewed her life as having zero value because she dared to defy his control. The friend who escaped now has to live with the crushing guilt that LaDonna died for her freedom, but the blame lies solely with Nathaniel Slade. The system failed LaDonna restraining orders, and police reports are just paper to a man willing to kill to maintain control. LaDonna should be celebrated as a hero. Instead, she was stabbed and discarded. Her story is a terrifying reminder that for some monsters, kindness is a provocation. There are LaDonnas everywhere, people offering safety to friends in need, and there are Nathaniel Slade's abusers who view help as an attack.
Next time you see someone helping a friend leave a bad situation, remember that for LaDonna, a trash can was deemed the final resting place for the crime of being a good friend. Closing out at level 7 is Jonathan Quiles. Family is supposed to be sacred. The people who share your blood, who know your history, who sat across from you at holiday dinners and birthday parties. These are the relationships built on a foundation of trust so deep that we don't even question it. Your uncle isn't someone you fear. Your uncle is someone you call when you need help, someone you confide in, someone you trust with your secrets. And if you're pregnant and scared and don't know what to do, your uncle might be exactly the person you turn to. That's what makes what Jonathan Quiles did so monumentally evil. His niece was pregnant. Let that sink in for a moment. A young woman, probably terrified, definitely vulnerable, carrying a child, and facing all the overwhelming emotions and decisions that come with unexpected pregnancy. She should have been supported. She should have been protected. She should have been able to trust her family, especially her uncle, to help her navigate this difficult time. Instead, she was carrying a secret that would get her killed. The affair, that's the poison at the center of this horror. Jonathan Quiles wasn't just her uncle, he was her lover. He had violated every possible boundary, had corrupted a relationship that should have been protective into something predatory and wrong. And when that affair resulted in pregnancy, when the evidence of his betrayal started growing inside her body, Jonathan Quiles did the math and decided murder was the solution. Now I want you to really think about the calculation here. This wasn't a stranger afraid of getting caught. This was family. Jonathan Quiles had watched his niece grow up. He'd been at her birthday parties, her school events, her family gatherings. He'd seen her as a child, as a teenager, as a young woman, and at some point, he'd decided that their blood relationship meant nothing compared to his own desires. He'd seduced her or coerced her or manipulated her into a sexual relationship that should never have existed. And when that relationship threatened to expose him, he chose murder. Picture the moment she told him about the pregnancy. Maybe she was hopeful. Maybe she thought he'd take responsibility, that he'd help her figure out what to do. Maybe she even loved him, caught up in the twisted dynamic he'd created. Whatever she was feeling, whatever she was hoping for, Jonathan Quiles was already planning her death. While she was talking about the baby, about their future, about what happens next, he was calculating how to silence her permanently. The murder itself was brutal and final. Quiles didn't stage an accident. He didn't make it look like she'd run away. He killed his pregnant niece, the woman carrying his child, and then he threw her body into a dumpster. A dumpster, the place where we put actual garbage, refuse, things we want hauled away and forgotten. That's what Jonathan Quiles thought his niece was worth. That's what he thought of the baby she was carrying. His own child. Trash to be discarded. Ask yourself, how does someone look at their pregnant niece and see a problem to be eliminated rather than a person to be cherished? How does family mean so little that murder becomes acceptable? Jonathan Quiles had countless opportunities to make different choices. He could have never started the affair. He could have ended it before pregnancy occurred. He could have taken responsibility. He could have helped her terminate the pregnancy safely if that's what she wanted. Instead, he chose the most permanent, most violent solution possible. The family was destroyed twice. First, by the revelation of the affair, the sickening knowledge that Jonathan Quiles had been abusing his position of trust. Second, by the murder itself, the loss of a young woman and an unborn child. How does a family recover from that? How do you process that the person who was supposed to protect your daughter, your sister, your niece, was actually the monster destroying her from within? The dumpster haunts me, because here's the thing. Dumpsters are designed to hide things. They're metal containers where garbage disappears, where evidence gets buried under more trash, where things are meant to be lost forever. Jonathan Quiles was counting on that. He thought he could make his pregnant niece vanish into the waste stream, just another bag of trash in the endless flow of garbage. He thought he could erase her, erase his crime, erase the consequences of his actions. Here's the ultimate horror. Jonathan Quiles represents the darkest possible betrayal. He was family, he was trusted, he was supposed to be safe, and he used all of that to abuse, impregnate, and ultimately murder someone who should have been able to count on him for protection. The affair was evil. The pregnancy made it complicated. The murder made it unforgivable. And the dumpster, that final act of disposing of her like garbage, reveals exactly how little human life meant to him when it threatened his secret. So here's your final thought. Family gatherings will never feel quite the same after you know this story. Because somewhere at every holiday dinner, every reunion, every family event, there might be someone like Jonathan Quiles. Someone trusted. Someone respected. Someone hiding a secret so dark that they'd rather commit murder than let it see light. And the next time someone says blood is thicker than water, remember that blood can also be spilled, that family can be fatal, and that sometimes the monster isn't the stranger at the door, but the uncle sitting across the dinner table.